Before your cat settles beside you to sleep, there is often a moment that most people barely notice. The cat approaches, finds their spot, and then simply looks at you. Not a demanding stare, not a request for food or play, just a calm, steady gaze held for a few seconds before they curl up and close their eyes. It is so brief and so ordinary seeming that almost no one gives it a second thought. But that look, that quiet moment of eye contact before sleep, is one of the most psychologically loaded behaviors in your cat's entire social vocabulary. It is not random, and it is not casual, and once you understand what is actually happening during those few seconds, you will never see that moment the same way again. Hello friends, I want to thank everyone who watches this video and supports the channel. Every like, every comment, and every share means more than you think for me and for my dreams. Without delay, let's begin. To understand the pre-sleep stare, you first need to understand something about what sleep represents in the psychological world of a cat. Cats sleep between 12 and 16 hours a day, which might suggest that sleep is a simple and uncomplicated part of their lives. But the way cats approach sleep, the choices they make about where to sleep, when to sleep, and near whom to sleep, is anything but simple. Every sleep decision a cat makes is, at some level, a trust decision. Sleep is the period of maximum vulnerability. The ability to detect and respond to threats drops significantly. The physical capacity to escape or defend is reduced, and for a creature whose entire behavioral architecture is organized around the management of vulnerability, the act of choosing to sleep in a specific location beside a specific individual represents one of the most significant trust assessments their system will make in any given day. The stare that precedes sleep is the final stage of that assessment. It is not the beginning of a social interaction. It is the conclusion of one. By the time your cat is standing beside you and looking at you before settling, they have already done the environmental evaluation, checked the sensory landscape of the room, assessed the general emotional tone of the household, and determined that the conditions for rest are acceptable. The stare is the last checkpoint. It is a direct social evaluation of you in this specific moment to confirm that the most important variable in their sleep environment, the person they are choosing to rest beside, is in a state that is consistent with what their experience has led them to expect. They are reading your current behavioral and emotional signal before they make the commitment of closing their eyes near you. Research into feline gaze behavior has revealed something that changes the intuitive interpretation of this moment significantly. In cat-to-cat social interaction, sustained direct eye contact is typically a signal of tension or dominance challenge rather than affiliation. Cats that are comfortable with each other tend to look away, to avoid prolonged mutual gaze as a way of communicating non-threatening intent. But the gaze that cats direct toward their trusted humans operates on a different social register entirely. Studies examining the interaction between cats and their owners have found that cats use a specific form of directed gaze toward their attachment figures that is qualitatively different from the gaze they direct toward other cats or toward unfamiliar humans. It is softer in its physical expression, slower in its tempo, and consistently associated with affiliative rather than challenging intent. When your cat looks at you before sleep, they are not assessing a potential rival. They are orienting toward the individual who anchors their sense of safety and checking the status of that anchor before they allow themselves to become fully vulnerable. Imagine a scene that many cat owners will recognize immediately. You are lying on the bed in the evening, reading or watching something, and your cat comes into the room. They jump up, walk across the bed, and come to stand near your legs or your side. They do not immediately lie down. They stand there for a moment and look at you. Not urgently, not demandingly, just a quiet held gaze that lasts maybe 3 or 4 seconds. Then they look away, circle once or twice and settle beside you. That look, that 3 or 4 seconds of calm eye contact is the behavioral equivalent of a question being asked and answered. Your stillness, your calm, your relaxed body language in that moment constitutes the answer. And the settling that follows is your cat accepting that answer as sufficient. They checked in, you passed. They can sleep. The role of the slow blink in this sequence adds a layer that most people find genuinely moving when they encounter it for the first time. Many cats, when they stare at their owner before settling to sleep, will at some point in that pre-sleep gaze produce a slow, deliberate blink, half closing their eyes before opening them again. Research has confirmed that this slow blink functions as a social affiliative signal between cats and their trusted humans, communicating relaxed, non-threatening intent and positive emotional regard. When your cat slow blinks at you before sleep, they are doing something that in their social vocabulary is equivalent to a declaration of comfort. They are saying that in this moment, in this configuration, With you in this state beside them, everything is as it should be. The slow blink is not sleepiness, it is social punctuation. It is a period at the end of the trust assessment sentence, and what that sentence says is, "You are safe and I am safe with you." What makes the pre-sleep stare particularly significant from an attachment theory perspective is that it occurs at the moment of maximum vulnerability transition, the threshold between wakefulness and sleep. Attachment researchers studying human infants have noted that young children show heightened orientation toward their attachment figures precisely at these threshold moments, when the transition from one state to another temporarily increases the need for reassurance that the attachment figure is present and stable. The gaze a cat directs at you before sleep may operate through a structurally similar dynamic. The impending vulnerability of sleep creates a brief elevation in the need for social confirmation, and the pre-sleep stare is how that need expresses itself behaviorally. Your cat is not just looking at you, they are anchoring themselves to you before they let their guard down. The consistency of this behavior across nights is particularly telling. A cat that checks in with you before sleeping every evening has established a ritual, a behavioral routine that exists specifically at the intersection of attachment and vulnerability management. Rituals in animal behavior are not accidents. They are patterns that have been reinforced through repeated positive outcomes. Your cat looks at you before sleep because every time they have done so before, what they found was reassuring enough to allow rest. They looked, they found you calm and present, they slept, and they woke safely. That cycle, repeated dozens or hundreds of times, has created a behavioral pattern with its own internal logic and its own emotional weight. The stare before sleep is not incidental to the routine. It is load-bearing. It holds the whole cycle together. Consider the implications of what happens when that routine is disrupted. A cat whose owner is visibly upset or agitated at the time they would normally settle to sleep may hesitate longer, may not settle at all in their usual spot, may circle and reposition themselves repeatedly before finding a configuration that feels acceptable. This is not the cat being difficult, it is the cat encountering data during their pre-sleep assessment that does not match the expected pattern. The check-in revealed something inconsistent with normal, and the cat's system is responding to that inconsistency by extending the evaluation phase rather than proceeding to the vulnerability of sleep. Your emotional state at bedtime matters to your cat in a practical and measurable way, because your emotional state is one of the primary variables in their sleep security assessment. They are not just choosing a comfortable spot, they are choosing a safe moment, and you are part of what makes a moment safe or not. There is something in this that reframes the entire experience of sharing sleep space with a cat. We tend to think of a cat sleeping beside us as something that happens to us, a nice thing that the cat does for their own warmth or comfort. But the behavioral reality is considerably more relational than that. The cat chose this moment, assessed this environment, they looked at you specifically, evaluated what they found, and decided that this version of you, in this moment beside this configuration of space, was trustworthy enough to close their eyes near. That decision was not passive. It was active, it was social, and it was, in the deepest feline sense of the word, an expression of the bond that exists between you. The few seconds before your cat closes their eyes beside you may be the quietest conversation you will ever have with another living creature. No words, no gestures, just a gaze held long enough to say what needs to be said. And what needs to be said every time is simple. I trust you, I am safe here, I can rest. Maybe the most profound thing a cat can offer another being is not the warmth of their body or the sound of their purr. Maybe it is the willingness to close their eyes beside you, because for a creature built around vigilance, choosing to sleep is choosing to trust. And they chose you. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help me achieve my life dream. Because at the end of the day, my friend, we both love cats. And goodbye.